Casper and Dennis of Submission Radio, proudly brought to you by Masashi, here at the UFC 229 Nurmagomedov Vodka launch party, alongside Aaron Bronsteter of TSN. Very lucky to be joining us, and we're going to be discussing some of the things that happened today, took place at the weigh-ins, which, funny enough, for a weigh-in featuring Drake, went from 0 to 100 real quick. What did you think about the altercation that took place between Conor McGregor and Khabib in the very last seconds, where Conor threw a little bit of a kick and Khabib sort of stayed there a little bit stoic?
Well, first off, you said very lucky to be joining us. Like, I'm lucky to be joining you. But I'll take it.
The pleasure is all.
I do enjoy the show. The stand down was Conor 101. I mean, he does what Conor wants to do. He knocks Khabib's hand. He's trying to get Khabib fired up. He's trying to get his team fired up. And I was backstage, and his team was fired up. Khabib's team were all loud in the hallway. They were causing a bit of a ruckus back there.
They were pissed off about it.
They were mad. So even if Khabib himself isn't mad, that does change the energy of the people that surround him. That does amp up. It gets his blood rate going, gets his pulse moving. Even if he is trying to maintain his composure, that kind of thing can get in the head of somebody. And Conor, he's an agitator. He's a disruptor, and that's what he's doing in this situation with Khabib. And I think it's working. I mean, I think the hard and fast evidence that Khabib is doing things that he wouldn't ordinarily do is if you go back to open workouts afterwards, Khabib gets on the mic and starts talking about McGregor's family. You know, McGregor's family, they were aligned with the British and all this. He would never have done that if not for Conor coming up with all of these points of reference for Khabib's life outside the octagon at the press conference. So he's making Khabib think about things that he ordinarily wouldn't be thinking about going into a fight. So he is disrupting the flow of that camp, whether Khabib and his team would admit it or not.
So let's have a look at the week, because I guess before this fight we thought, all right, Conor is really going to take it to Khabib here. He's going to get in his head. He's going to do his thing. We're at the end of the week now. The fight day is tomorrow. How effective was he? Did he exceed your expectation? Did he meet your expectation? Or was it below your expectation as to the job that he did?
I think he met my expectations. He would have exceeded them if he would have had the opportunity to sit with Khabib again, but Khabib left.
So was that a good move from Khabib to leave that press conference?
100%. It was a great move. It was a very smart move. And I think when Conor got there, he realized that he missed an opportunity. You know, he should have known that that's something that Khabib would have done, which is get out of there when he has the chance. You know, if he's able to be in a situation where he doesn't need to put up with McGregor's antics, I think it's a very, very wise move for Khabib to avoid those situations at all cost.
We have to give a hat tip to our good friend Luke Thomas, who was making a very good point a little bit earlier about how Khabib's promised.
That's rare. No,
Luke Thomas making a good point? No.
I'm joking.
Yeah, of course. I was going to say, Khabib sort of promised very few things, but every one of those things that he's promised, he's sort of lived up to those. And that one of those was he's going to rock up to the press conference, he's going to be there at 3, that's when it's starting, and no later. He also promised he's going to be weighing in at 9 a.m. sharp, and then he's leaving. And he was the first person to weigh in, and so far, all those things, do you think they sort of give him a little bit of momentum and sort of give him the confidence, whether he's sort of bothered by Conor or not? It kind of seems like he's ticking all these boxes, he's doing the right things, and give him that confidence leading to the fight.
I think so. And God, did he get in there fast and get on that scale.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't even have a chance to set up. I was going to set up, one of those Periscope feeds on one of my phones, and he was in and out, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that's not happening. But I think that he's doing what a textbook professional would do. He's being there on time. He's getting done the very bare minimum of his obligations, the things that he needs to get done. He's doing them like a professional and then getting out. And I think that's a very wise thing to do. I think that today he did have to be face-to-face with Conor, and I do think that Conor did some things that would annoy Khabib. I don't think that Khabib showed it, but I think that when Khabib got backstage with his team and they were all fired up, that can have an effect on him. But I think, I give Khabib an A+ for this fight week. I think that he's done all the right things that he should be doing that will give him an advantage in this fight. I don't think that from a promotional standpoint, it makes a ton of sense to not be in the same room as Conor McGregor, who's going to be able to get more buys, but it doesn't seem like this thing's going to have much of a problem selling from what Dana White told me earlier.
We've seen opponents. We don't really know what happens until they get in the octagon with Conor McGregor. Do you think this is the bright lights, the big city, the crowds of Irish people dancing, breaking it down? I mean, good God, it was like a club in there. I don't know about you, but I started sort of dancing at one point. That DJ was really going for it in there. There were people dancing, people on each other's shoulders. There was a guy in some kind of weird, many guys in many weird suits. Even a fight broke out at some point and the police were taking statements afterwards. Do you think the big moment and the bright lights tomorrow will be too much for Khabib, like it's been for a lot of Conor's opponents, especially when Conor's going to get out in front of him? He's going to maybe put his hands behind his back, maybe taunt him a little bit. Will that be too much for him?
It's hard to know, really, until we see it. But what I do know is that Conor's the type of guy that always rises to the occasion in those situations. So I don't know if we'll ever really know. I mean, if Conor comes out and knocks Khabib out, I don't know if it's that that Khabib didn't live up to the expectations under the bright lights, or if Conor just did what Conor always does, which is exceed expectations and really overperform in those situations. The more people that are around Conor, the more he feeds off of them, and the better he's able to do. And even when there was nobody there at that first press conference, he really knocked it out of the park. I mean, he was pulling things out of his hat. And, Dana White called it the darkest press conference he's been a part of. And, I mean, it's hard to argue with that because he was going to places where I don't think anybody ever would have gone with any other opponent.
Just quickly on that, we were watching ESPN, and it really looks like the focus over here in America are these Ali headlines. What's going on there with his background, the crime, the alleged things that are happening in this family's life. Do you think it's a positive? I mean, ESPN was kind of trying to spin it like, oh, it's MMA. And of course, in MMA, this kind of thing would happen without any kind of consequence or any kind of person saying, hey, what's going on here? Ultimately, do you think it's sort of bad that that's being focused on by the media, especially the ESPNs of America?
Well, I don't think that any of us can control what the media wants to cover. I think that what he is saying is making people wonder what it's all about, and building a curiosity for it. I mean, it's hard to deny that Ali is one of the most powerful agents in the sport. One of the best rosters of any agent. He's been able to make a career out of whatever his standing is in this country and whatever he has done in the past. He's been able to build perhaps the best roster of talent in all of MMA. So you've got to tip your hat to him on that front. As for the other things, that's for law enforcement or whatever to investigate, and for other journalists that are interested in it, and they want to do a deep dive on him and they want to write about him, that's their prerogative as well. But I think that it certainly has,
It's an interesting focus point for a fight between two guys that are supposed to fight in an octagon.
It's brought an agent into things with a fight, and we know how close Khabib is with his agent. And when you do things that rattle somebody who's close to your opponent, Ali did an interview earlier this week with Ariel Helwani. He says he doesn't care about it. But if you think that after that first press conference he wasn't pretty irate about this, he's a very fiery guy. He's a very emotional guy. I think you'd probably be fooling yourself. But at the same time, I think that it's really the media's prerogative to cover what they want to cover. So, I think that with Ali, he's made a great name for himself in this business, and anybody who is a name in this business is open to people saying whatever they want about them. It's MMA. People cut promos on people all the time, so nobody is bulletproof.
I'm just always constantly fascinated by the lengths that Conor McGregor will go to get in his opponent's head, or at least attempt to. I mean, he's trying to get in Khabib's head because by going after his agent, who he knows Khabib is close with. Who else would do that? As we let you go, Aaron, after everything you've seen in this fight week, the lead up to this fight, what's your prediction? Who are you leaning towards? And I know it's a tough one to predict. I don't think anyone's giving confident predictions here, but who are you sort of leaning towards?
It's so weird. It's been such a seesaw for me because when this fight was first announced, I'm like, I don't know how Conor's going to beat this guy. And then when I picture Conor knocking him out, it's something that can tangibly happen, but we've just never seen Khabib in any real trouble. Aside, Michael Johnson dropped him, but Michael Johnson didn't win that round. Yeah. I mean, let's not forget, Khabib has never lost a round in the UFC. And that's a narrative that I was pushing for a long time and that people seem to have clung on to. I went back and looked at all the scorecards. He had not lost a single round. People say that, he lost the Gleison Tebow fight, didn't lose a round.
And just put it out there, Khabib wore that punch pretty well from Michael Johnson. He was hurt, but it's not like he was on his back.
Yeah, he was hurt. He got dropped. He got back up, and he won the round. So again, we haven't seen him in any real trouble. But you can probably say the same thing for Jose Aldo. I mean, Aldo had lost rounds, but we had never been in a situation where Aldo lost that fight. Never happened. And Conor beat him in 13 seconds. Conor's able to do the unimaginable, the unthinkable. And I think if you're looking at it from a perspective of the odds, I think the odds are way too high for Conor McGregor, or too low for Conor McGregor in this fight, too high for Khabib. I think this is a coin flip fight. I really do. I think that you're talking about one of the absolute best strikers in the sport against one of the absolute best grapplers in the sport. People always say wrestling's the best base for success in MMA, and maybe we'll find that out tomorrow. I think that Khabib has the better weapon, the better chance of winning. If it was an even money thing, and I'm picking, I'd go with Khabib. I think he has a better opportunity to win the fight. But I think you have to be insane to pick against Conor McGregor. If it's just not a fight you should put any money on. It's honestly a total coin flip. And I think that anybody who thinks that they have a really good gauge of what's going to happen in this fight is kind of fooling themselves, because these are two of the absolute elite fighters in this sport, and this could go either way.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Of course, check out Aaron's amazing work with TSN. Check him out on social media. And jump on the Submission Ready YouTube channel, as tomorrow is UFC 229. Who's going to win? Is it going to be Khabib? Is it going to be Conor? Is it going to be the fans? We will find out tomorrow. Enjoy the fights, and we'll catch you then.